Today starts the 7-3 lesson, and it's split into 2 days. It may take a little longer than 2 days to get through like the practice time and the exit ticket and all that, but it's split into 2 days, and each day is a little different. So today we're just going to look at factoring trinomials where the leading coefficient is 1. If you don't know what that means, you'll learn in a second. But today it's going to be one method that we use when the leading coefficient is 1. Tomorrow you'll learn what to do when the leading coefficient is not 1. But to be successful at this, you need to be able to use what's called the diamond method to factor trinomials and write your answer as a product of 2 binomials, and then be able to FOIL and or distribute to check your answers. I'm recording now. I'll link it in the slides, which is where you should go if you're ever absent or if you're pulled to make up a test the day that we learned something. You should always be watching the video. That's why even though some of you were absent Wednesday or doing something different that day, you were still responsible for the lesson. All right, that's why I still made you do the entrance ticket. So just keep that in mind. It's the same unit test, so that's why I want you to at least see the questions that are on the entrance ticket so you know like what your test will look like. The practice for day 1 is what you picked up today. It even says day 1 on it. So don't confuse the day 1 and the day 2 practice. Tomorrow it'll be a worksheet that says 7-3 day 2 practice. I always get students anytime I have like a day 1 and day 2 practice that are like, oh, I turned this in. Why is it marked as missing? Because you only turned in the day 1 practice. So you only turned in the day 2 practice. So just be aware when you turn things in. I'm hoping that after today's lesson, you can honestly just go home and finish that practice, because I'll give you a little time tomorrow, but we're going to keep moving right along. So this seems to be like a quick and easy lesson. So you should be able to do your whole homework sheet, but I'm only going to have you do the evens or odds. The plan is to do the exit ticket for 7-3 tomorrow. That covers both days, but we may need to adjust that just because I do also want to give you time to practice before I have you do the exit ticket. But we'll just have to wait and see how long it actually takes. The lesson doesn't seem to be very difficult for students, but it is going to cover both when the leading coefficient is 1 and then when it's not 1, which has some differences in the methods we use. All right. A couple other things I wanted to show you guys is we took the topic 6 test last week, or at least the retake for it. And those have all been entered in the gradebook. And here's the class averages for the test. So anywhere from, well, period 3 is like my outlier class, right? Theirs is pretty low. But for the rest of them, it's anywhere from like 65% to almost 72%. So you guys so far have the highest class average for the test, which is really great. This is like the highest it's been in years. So, you know, if you aren't satisfied with your grade after the topic 6 test, even though you guys are like my higher level class, I'm sure there's maybe a couple people in here that still aren't happy with their grade. Additional retakes do have to be done during tutoring hours, which my tutoring hours are on Fridays. So if that doesn't work for you, then that's why you should be taking the retakes that we do in class a lot more seriously. Because I can't justify pulling you out of class to retake a retake. That's essentially what you're doing. You already had the retake in class. So if you want to like study on your own time, the review sheet has already been given to you. It's in Schoology. If you want to essentially retake a retake or do corrections on it, then it has to be during tutoring hours. But either way, I've seen kids' overall grade go up a ton after I put up a test in the gradebook. because I give you back all the points for your entrance exit tickets that were lower and so on. All right, so that is a big chunk of your grade. Also, here's another statistic for you. So this is the number of students failing per class period. So in this class period, we have, and this was before I put in benchmarks, 5 students failing. All right, which is honestly not that bad in a class of like 30. But I mean, those 5 people, I'll have to like look again. If I'm not mistaken, those 5 people are not too far gone from passing. It's a pretty high F, I guess you could say. So they could still just like retake a test and get back on track. There's still lots of hope. I mean, if your percentage of an F is really low, then I would probably suggest like coming to tutoring, studying more, taking the retake seriously. But nobody is too far gone in this class to pass. And if we can get that number down to 0 for period 4, then I'm willing to buy you guys some treats, like have a little donut party, but it has to be like by the final exam. So if we can get that number to 0 before the final exam, then I'll buy you treats. We'll have like a little donut party on one of the final exam days. But we still have to take the final. I can't excuse you from the final, but just keep that in mind. If we can get that number down to 0, that's a big accomplishment that I think is worth rewarding. So any questions on this? There's really like less than 3 months left in the school year. So almost there. All right, so now let's look at the warm up on the note sheet for today. So how do you solve problems like this? Yes? Double distribute, good. So what's x times x? What's x times 5?
5x positive.
Good, so put plus 5x. And then the 1, distribute that 1. What's 1 times x?
X.
And 1 times 5.
5.
Usually after distributing, what do you have to do? Combine like terms. And when it's a binomial times a binomial, it's usually the middle terms that are like terms. So what's 5x plus x? And it's positive, so put plus 6x. Bring down that x squared and the plus 5. And that should have been your answer for the first one. The only difference as we do these other examples is the signs. So we're just honestly checking to make sure we know our integer rules. On this one, we'll FOIL. What's m times m? M squared. What is m times 6?
6.
Good. Inner terms, what's -4 times m?
-4.
And then last terms, what's -4 times 6? -24. All right, combine like terms. What's 6m minus 4m?
2m.
Positive 2m. So good, and then we have m squared plus 2m minus 24. So questions on the foiling. All right, so then we'll double distribute to close it out. What's k times k? What is k times -3? Good, and then distribute that -7. What's -7 times k? And then -7 times -3? Positive 21. All right, combine like terms. What's -3k minus 7k? And then bring down the other two things that don't have any like terms, k squared and plus 21. So here's what your answer should have been for the warm-up. Any questions about that process? And it's a good thing that all these new lessons start off with a warm-up that is basically the last unit. So if you didn't do so hot on the last unit, you can get some studying in every day that we learn something new. All right, but usually for the warm-up, there's something in common with our answers. And today it's that the leading coefficient of all our answers is 1. So leading coefficient is 1 in all of our answers. So do you guys know what a leading coefficient is?
No.
You guys know what a coefficient is?
Yeah.
What's that?
Or
The number before the variable. So the leading coefficient will be the very first coefficient. And when it's written in standard form, I should say. So like, what's the coefficient if it's not written? So this one's 1, in front of the m squared is, and in front of the k squared is. So when you have a leading coefficient of 1, and you're told to factor it, so basically we're gonna work backwards from this and get this as our answer. You can use something what's called the diamond method. The diamond method is a really easy way to organize your thoughts for this, because essentially we have trinomials. What's a trinomial? A 3-term expression, good. So if you look up here at our warm-up, all of these have 3 terms. So if you have a 3-term expression in this format, ax squared plus bx plus c, I'm gonna write an a in front of here. And put when a equals 1. Then what we are going to be doing is finding 2 integers that add to b, so the middle coefficient, and multiply to c. So if we are given a trinomial that we need to factor, we're going to find 2 numbers that add to the middle coefficient and multiply to whatever constant is in that position. So add to b, multiply to c. The diamond method is a really easy way to like say that. So for the diamond method, we're going to draw our diamond. Here's our given example, x squared plus 7x plus 12. And instead of saying to you guys like, oh, like what 2 numbers add to b and multiply to c, we can just organize it with our diamond. All right. Our diamond on the top will be a times c. So it goes in the order ax squared plus bx plus c. For all these problems today, a is going to be what number? Which is 1. So it's basically 1 times whatever number is in the C position. What's in the C position? So A times C is 12. And then it has to add to B, which will go in this part of your diamond. What number is in the B position?
so that.
Just a 7. So yes. And to fill in our diamond, I need 2 numbers that multiply to 12. If it helps to draw the symbol, then draw the symbol. Multiply to 12, but at the same time, add to 7. 3 and 4. Anyone disagree? You find the 2 numbers that complete the diamond. Are there other numbers that multiply to 12? Yeah, there's 6 and 2, but that doesn't add up to 7, so I can't use 6 and 2. There's 12 and 1, but those don't add up to 7, so I can't use those numbers. But 3 and 4 work for the whole diamond. Make sense? So this answers that question. What 2 integers have a product of 12 and a sum of 7? 3 and 4. And once you find those 2 numbers with our diamond, then here's how you write the answer. X plus 3 in parentheses times x plus 4 in parentheses. You use whatever variable they use. The signs depend on whether it's positive or negative in your diamond. So for these, they're both positive. And then that's my answer. How could I always check my answer? Just double distribute or FOIL. And this one I'll FOIL. What's x times x? What's x times 4? 3 times x. And 3 times 4. Combine like terms, what do we get? And isn't that what we had originally? So that just proves that it works. All right, but the diamond method, I think, is the best way to organize your thoughts for that. Questions about the diamond method? All right, and it only works when the leading coefficient is 1. Tomorrow you'll learn what to do when it's not 1. All right, so now these are just a bunch of examples. And the difference in each set is just like the signs used. So let's go through some together. Number 1, what number will go on the top of the diamond? Good, A times C, so 1 times 20 is 20. And what number goes on the bottom? Good, our B position number, 9. I need 2 numbers that multiply to 20 and at the same time add to 9. 5 and 4. Any disagreements? If you didn't know, here's what you can do. Make a little list. 2 times 10 multiplies to 20. 4 times 5. 20 times 1. The only combination that works is the 5 and 4. Right? Our answer is n plus 5 times n plus 4. Let's look at number 4 together. What number would go on the top? What number would go on the bottom? What numbers multiply to 1 but add to 2? Good, those are the only numbers that multiply to 1. So 1 and 1, we get y plus 1, y plus 1, in parentheses, multiply together. And since these are the exact same set of parentheses, we can also write it like this, with a y plus 1 squared. Questions on 4? All right, let's do, or actually I'll just have you try 2 and 3. So try 2 and 3 for a little bit, give you like 1 minute. All right, so for number 2, set up your diamond. What number goes on the top? What number goes on the bottom? Could I do 2 and 9? What numbers make the whole diamond work? 6 and 3. So you need numbers that multiply to 18, but at the same time add to 9. So your final answer would be W plus 6 times W plus 3. And yes, you can have these like the other way around. W plus 3 and W plus 6. All right. Questions on 2? So now look at 3. 3 might have been a little more challenging because there's actually quite a few sets of numbers that multiply to 24. So what are some of them? 4 and 6, that's probably what your answer was. What are my other options? 12 and 2. What else? 8 and 3. And 24 and 1. So for numbers like 24, if I was having a hard time figuring it out, I would make a list of what multiplies to 24 and then just plug them in until I find the ones that work. Which ones are the ones that work? Good. So then your answer was A plus 4 in parentheses and A plus 6 in parentheses. Questions on 2 and 3? All right, so those ones are a little easier because they're all positive numbers involved. There can be negative numbers, so that's what we'll see in set 2. So the overall process is still the same. The rules are still the same. So let's look at 5. So number 5, what number will go on top? A negative 18. So keep the sign that's in front of each term. What number will go on the bottom? And now if I need to find two numbers that multiply to a negative, what has to be true about one of those numbers? I need one number to be negative. So just keep that in mind. But when I add them, it needs to give me a positive. So some numbers that multiply to 18, I'll list them over here. 9 times 2, 6 times 3, 18 times 1. Which combination might work? 6 and 3. And one of them has to be positive if it's giving us a negative 18 when we multiply. Which one would make it work for the whole diamond? Negative 3 is correct. If I put it on the negative 6 and I add them together, I get a negative 3 down here, which is not what it is. All right, so this is the only way it would work. Does that make sense? So just plug in numbers, maybe erase the negative, try it out on different numbers until you get a combination that works for the whole thing. So then when we write our answer, it's n minus 3. Questions about that? Alrighty then. Let's look at 7 together. For 7, what number goes on the top? What number goes on the bottom? 6 doesn't have a lot of options, so I have 6 times 1 and 2 times 3. Which combination would probably work out? And since this is negative when we multiply, one of them has to be negative. Which one does it have to be? 2. Good. Because negative 2 plus 3 gives me a positive 1. 2 plus negative 3 would give me a negative 1. So this is the combination that works. I get g minus 2 times g plus 3. Questions on 5 and 7? All right, you guys try 6 and 8 then. All right, so what numbers multiply to negative 8, but at the same time add to 2? 4 and negative 2 is correct. So it has to be x plus 4, that's x minus 2 in your setup over here. Signs do matter. Down here, what numbers multiply to negative 45 but add to 4? 9 and a negative 5. So c plus 9 and c minus 5. Questions on number 8? All right, so please bear with me. I don't want you guys to be behind all my other classes. We're going to do like a couple and I'm going to have you try them. Once we go over them, then you can practice. All right, don't do it early because it'll drive me crazy and it'll be way too loud. So number 9, set up your diamond. What number goes on top? What number goes on the bottom? Well, 3 is a pretty easy number to work with. It's just 3 and 1 that multiply to 3. Which one needs to have a negative if we're going to add to a negative 2? The 3. All right, negative 3 plus 1 gives me negative 2. So the answer is a minus 3 and a plus 1. All right, now let's look at 13. So let's look at set 4. We have 24 on the top and negative 11 on the bottom. Now 24 is one of those ones that we said has a lot of options, right? It was 12 and 2, what else? 8 and 3, 6 and 4, 24 and 1. Now look at how the diamond's set up. The top number is positive. To multiply to get a positive, that means I either need to multiply 2 positive numbers or 2 negative numbers. And I know from looking at the number that's down here, that in this situation, it has to be 2 negative numbers. Because can I ever add 2 positive numbers and get a negative? No. And then, so I know they both need to be negative. Which combination is the only one that'll work? Good. So that's why for this one, it's x minus 8, x minus 3. So I guess the moral of the story is plug in numbers until you find the ones that work. Play around with the signs until it works for the entire diagram. Questions about that? All right, so then try 10 and 14. I'll project those answers in 1 minute, and then you'll pack up after that, okay? Don't pack up. Also, don't lose your notes between now and tomorrow because we're gonna finish the notes tomorrow too. All right, for number 10, what two numbers multiply to negative 30 but add to negative 7? Should be negative 10 and positive 3. If we're getting a negative 7 when we add. What about multiplying to 49 but adding to negative 14? Negative 7 and negative 7. So since the top number is positive, they both have to either be negative or both have to either be positive. If it adds to negative 14, this is what it has to be. And you can write it like this because they happen to be the same exact set of parentheses. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, so don't lose your notes between now and tomorrow. We'll do the GCF tomorrow.